Comcast actually sells, or I should say resells, wireless service for Verizon. They obviously don't have their own network in place, but they are piggybacked onto Verizon's, like a lot of other MVNOs or resellers or whatever you like to call them, and they're reselling Verizon's network under their own label. So we have something called Xfinity Mobile. Now, the interesting thing here is that while, as far as I know, Verizon hasn't chosen to, at least at this point, pick and choose what they're going to throttle on their mobile network, they do give their resellers that ability. So if you've got a phone connected to Verizon through Xfinity Mobile has decided that they're going to basically turn down the default on their video streaming to 480p instead of 720. My first question is, why wouldn't you leave that to the user to do that manually? I'm not sure, but I get the feeling this is kind of a soft launch of let's try this out on mobile, just change one little thing at a time, because obviously it wouldn't make sense for them to get net neutrality repealed and then jump in and do a whole bunch of crazy stuff that people react to. I think it would make a lot more sense, not that I'm in favor of it, but would have a much better chance of kind of flying under the radar if you make these changes gradually. And I believe this is one of the first ones that we're seeing here. So Comcast mobile service is imposing new speed limits on video watching. Okay, this is specifically for video. And this is where it gets tricky, because we want to see our access to the internet treated equally, whether it's video, audio, if you're browsing, if you're downloading, uploading. There really shouldn't be like there's this much data available for video, this much data available for this other thing, and so forth. But this is what we're seeing. Short version is that videos will be throttled to 480p, which is DVD quality, on all Comcast mobile plans unless you pay extra. Oh, so you can get in the fast lane. All you have to do is shell out a little extra cash for your connection. Sounds very familiar, right? Comcast Unlimited plan will limit mobile hotspot speeds to 600 kilobits per second. Only customers who pay by the gigabyte will get full speed tethering, but the cost would add up quickly as Comcast charges $12 for each gigabyte. And you can see where this is going, and I'm going to make a prediction here, and that is sometime in the near future, we will see that this same service we're talking about, Xfinity Mobile, may, I'm not going to say will, I'm going to say may, and I should say all the conversations in this stream are based on what we have available to us. So that's why I put the sources down in the bottom. You can check them out there yourself. They are, to the best of my knowledge, reliable, but I want you to see where the information came from. It would not surprise me if in the near future Comcast said you can get Xfinity Mobile at 480p for all video except some of the video services that we provide, something that they have a hand in or profit from in some way, which may come through at full speed with no types of penalties associated with them. I want to say T-Mobile did something very similar about 2-3 years back. So, at the very least, we should be aware that this is happening. Whether or not you're in favor of it, at least it's a good idea for us to know what's happening. And this looks like it is one of the first steps. And it's been a whole 2 weeks. They waited to do this after net neutrality was no longer in effect. And all of a sudden, if you're on one of these plans, you get to pay extra if you want to see video at full quality. And one of the arguments here about this is that, they say that network congestion is really one of the biggest reasons why they have to do this. You have a whole bunch of people watching videos and it slows down everybody else and it's clogging up the network. And I get that, but the fact that they're going to limit this to video streaming rather than just saying, hey, if you're using up a bunch of data, it's going to affect your overall speed, or you're going to drop down to whatever that second tier speed is, number one. And secondly, why not make this only be something that happens during a time period when there is network congestion? If you have a node that's all tied up with a whole bunch of people during prime time, and it makes sense to throttle at that point, so that you don't have one person hogging up all the bandwidth, or a group full of a handful of people hogging up the bandwidth, but to just across the board say, now all video is going to be defaulted to 480p. This sounds very suspicious and not like it's something in the customer's best interest. That is my opinion. So, thanks. Hey, thanks, Dave. No problem. Sell some shirts and merch like other content providers, Mike. Thank you, Harvey. I've got some ideas in the works, and I don't know if you were here last week, but one of the interesting things about the latest, I think it was VidCon or something like that, where YouTube announced that you can put basically a sponsor button down underneath your videos, As soon as you hit 100,000, so I've only got, I don't know, 48,000 in something or 47,000 something to go. But t-shirts maybe. I'm working on some things, so we'll get there. But again, for me, for these streams, the money is not really what it's all about. It would be nice, to be compensated at least to help pay for my upgraded internet connection. But most of all, if you guys are here and watching, hey, that is a reward in and of itself. So I greatly appreciate that. So yeah, customers get bad news in email, and I do want to quickly read you the email that Comcast sent out so you can make of it what you will, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So this is a quoted, again, from Ars Technica. And this is a letter that I actually read this a couple days ago on Reddit from a customer who got it in the mail, and I wanted to go and verify that this was reliable, and obviously it is because we're seeing it in a number of publications now. To help you conserve data, we've established 480p as the standard resolution for streaming video through cellular data. Comcast told customers, for now, customers can contact Comcast for an upgrade to 720p on an interim basis at no charge. But after the interim period is over, getting HD quality video will cost extra. Later this year, 720 video over cellular will be available as a fee-based option with your service. Isn't this great? Isn't this what we looked forward to? The day when you can have an internet connection, and then if you want to get a certain type of content, you get to pay extra for it. Isn't that lovely? And somebody's going to come out and smile about this sincerely and tell people it's a great thing because it's helping build the network or something. I don't know. Or it's helping to relieve congestion in some certain area. And I question a lot of what they're telling us here. It's important to note that this change won't impact video resolution while using Wi-Fi. Really? I would hope not. Where customers will continue to be able to stream in HD. Nearly half of videos that stream on Comcast mobile service play at 480p today, according to the company. Really? I wonder what kind of phones people are using where they're getting 480p. Whatever. If you have the unlimited data option, your speeds on any device connected to a personal hotspot will not exceed 600 kilobits per second. Xfinity mobile users can get 4G hotspot speeds by switching to Comcast's by the gig pricing, and that is the $12 per gigabyte. If you can imagine, do some math, that could add up a little bit. And I love the end here. Comcast speeds are good for you. Excuse me if I sneeze right in the middle of this. Comcast limits are good for you. I love that. Comcast is trying to convince customers that the new speed limits will be good for them. That makes sense, I suppose, from marketing, right? 480p video can help you save money if you pay by the gig. How about just not charging extra for better video resolution? I think that would be an option. Anyways, there it is. I expect to see a lot more craziness like this. And again, at the very least, if I say this and 10 people hear it, I'm happy. Please pass this information on. We should, at the minimum, be aware of what's happening, even if we can't maybe directly do anything about it at this point in time. So HTC, remember, if you guys were here last week, I was talking about difficult phones to work on, and I had said the HTC One M7 was one of my least favorites, and then I remembered the G1, the very first Google phone, also known as the Dream. This thing was difficult to say the least because the screen to be switched out you have to go in through the back of the phone. So you've got two sandwiching pieces that don't slide up or down. It would go up and over. So like this. So you had this arcing sliding mechanism inside of this thing, and you had to disassemble it all the way from the back down to the front, just like an iPhone 4 pretty much. Change out the screen, basically reassemble the whole thing to test the screen and see if it was working. And I would just wonder why they did that. And then HTC started to make some very cool looking phones. And in fact, according to this article, they are saying that back in 2013, I think it was, or was it 20? No, it was further back than that. Let me find this because they had HTC at a pretty decent market share. So in 2014, they're saying that HTC was behind Samsung and LG with around. I'm sorry, I went to the wrong part here. I swear they had a bigger percentage. Where'd it go? I lost it. Anyways, if you remember, HTC had quite a few handsets on the market and people were actually buying them. And that started to kind of die off quite a bit back in about 2012-ish, I want to say 2013. And look at these numbers. It's pretty sad, really. Back in 2014, they had a 6% market share. In 2017, they had 2.3%. This is in the US, obviously. And by 2018, right as of now, HTC has less than 0.5% of the market share in the United States. And I think a lot of difficulties kind of contributed to this. They made some amazing products, but one big hit that they took was back in 2017 when Google bought up a bunch of people from the HTC team, which was a good move on their part, obviously. And they've continued to manufacture Google phones under the HTC name. But it looks like, as far as we can tell, HTC as a brand, I don't think we're going to be seeing that much in the future. I don't know if they're going to launch any more new handsets. And most importantly, I think it is to note that, HTC is not dead. HTC is not gone. They just seem to be moving away from the handset market. We know that the HTC Vive is probably one of the better selling pieces of VR equipment that we have on the market, and I think they're doing a good job with that, and probably will continue to, but they are going to be slashing a lot of jobs. According to this article, they are cutting something like 1,500 jobs in Taiwan, and that will bring their employee count down to less than 5,000 people worldwide. 5 years ago, they had 19,000, so that is quite a big drop. Presumably part of that would have something to do with automation, but I think for the most part, their handsets just not doing well for whatever reason. And it's unfortunate because they've made some nice looking equipment before, but I start to wonder if maybe these carrier deals aren't just like the most important thing that there is. If you're in a Verizon store, T-Mobile, AT&T, and you've got the majority of your line represented, and someone like HTC or Motorola or LG has one or two handsets in there, especially if it's not a flagship, it's going to be tough to get people to buy into that, because the credibility of your brand, if it's not well represented, not only in carrier stores, but if we look at something like Best Buy or Costco or anywhere else like that, if you don't get that brand name out there and people aren't seeing it every day, it's going to be a tough sell. So not a huge surprise. I think from a technician's perspective, we've always kind of said, I wish HTC would stop making their phones the way they're making them, but that really shouldn't have any impact on how well they're selling, or whether consumers are finding these to be something that they want to invest their dollars in. But for, I think a number of reasons. If you remember back in about 2013, I think it was, there was someone who was in charge over at HTC when it came to the handset manufacturing division, and I'm not sure exactly what his position was, but he pretty much got caught selling their technology out the back door. So he was taking proprietary information from HTC and taking it away to his own company, I think, that he was starting up, and he ended up getting caught somehow, but that had to be a setback for them, I would imagine. 480p is perfect for a 1.39-inch display. So there are a few, I guess if you've got a flip phone or something like that, that's going to do the trick, right? Yeah, so sadly, I think that we'll see HTC probably disappear, or, whatever it is that they have available right now, the brand name will probably be changed over in some way. Certainly not making it happen right now as far as phones go, but when it comes to VR, if you're doing something and you're succeeding, that's where you should concentrate a little more, I think. So hopefully they will do that, but as far as these kind of phones right here and the HTC brand, I think we're just about done. So not a big shocker. We'll see you later, HTC. I think you're ready to go. Now, Samsung, we've been talking about this for a while, a foldable screen. And I'm still skeptical about these for a number of reasons. Last week we looked at a patent design that Motorola had that is actually going to heat up an AMOLED. They're saying it heats the AMOLED in the area where it creases, where it folds in half, so that you don't damage the screen. And obviously we really don't know the inside story here, but Samsung, having plans for quite a while to create a foldable phone. And again, from our side of the counter, kind of looking at it as, how are we going to be able to service this thing? To take it apart and replace the screen or any of the other components on the inside. Obviously, these things aren't really getting easier for the phone repair people. So who knows what this is going to look like. If you check on the far right-hand side of this image they have in this article, one of the points that they made is that they believe, or at least the rumor says, that they believe people would be happy to have a screen that didn't exactly fold in half, but folded over and left part of the display visible, so that way you can see notifications, time of day, missed calls, that kind of thing, battery level, without actually opening the entire phone up, which kind of makes sense. And also that when this thing unfolds, it would actually be a 7-inch screen. Again, these are a lot of rumors floating around, so we don't know until we actually see them in action. But that would make it larger than the Galaxy Note 9 and the iPhone 10 Plus that are going to be launching later this year. So that'll be interesting. I know big phones are a thing for some reasons, and on the other hand, sometimes they're kind of a pain. It just depends on what you're doing them. But they're talking about this thing folding inwards, kind of like a wallet, but only 2/3 of the display will be covered when the screen is folded, which, the first thing I think of is that these flexible screens, we would assume that whatever is behind them has to be flexible as well. So I am curious as to what kind of effect that's going to have on the durability of an OLED screen. If it's flexible, that's fine. But when it comes to pressure, if you've got something that's flexible behind it instead of a rigid part that's going to kind of keep everything nice and smooth when it comes to impact, I wonder what's going to happen here when these things start getting folded up. The report notes that Samsung is already mass producing foldable OLED screens for the Galaxy. Did I call it Galaxy X or Galaxy 10? I'm going to go with Galaxy X on this one, even though the iPhone is the iPhone 10 that they chose a Roman numeral for to throw us off, I guess. With the first production run set for this summer, a second run is scheduled for September and will occur after Samsung finds and fixes whatever quality issues may affect the first batch. And this is where I like to give customers a word of caution. It's when it comes to any brand new released phone, and it doesn't matter what company it is that happens to be making it. If we got a flagship Galaxy, a flagship iPhone, a flagship, you name it, when that first form factor change happens and these things get out into the wild, we really don't know what to expect. Obviously, they test these things, under controlled conditions, and they probably hand out 100 or 200 or maybe more phones for their own employees to test out, but we really don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. So I'm always hesitant to jump into a new form factor. When the iPhone, I don't want to say the iPhone 7 because the iPhone 7 is basically the iPhone 6, but when the iPhone, not the iPhone 8 either. So when the iPhone 10 was released, this is really a brand, a very new design as far as a lot of the parts that are built into that thing go. And that is one of the reasons. I mean, I personally, there are a lot of features that are built into the iPhone 10 that I would not utilize. So I don't think that it's right to spend the extra money on something you're not going to use. But on top of that, if I were considering an iPhone 10 or anything else that's got a radically new form factor, I would personally wait until the second generation of that phone is available, because that's when you get the new improved version that fixes all the problems that we had with last year's version. So, but obviously I'll be in the minority. Most people like to have the latest, greatest, newest thing, especially if it's radically different from the previous generation. So I'll leave that to them to test them out and then bring them in and let us know what's going wrong with them so we can figure out how to address those issues. Have you seen the Gemini PDA? I have not seen the Gemini PDA. Tell me about this Gemini PDA. Let's take a look at it. Gemini PDA. I love that we can just, whoops, I think I typoed there. I love that we can just kind of pull up this browser, and as long as we remain within fair use, and this is Alpher, A-L-P-H-R. Let's see. So wait a minute, you're talking about just a PDA, or is this, am I looking at the right thing? Because this looks like an old school clamshell kind of phone. I am sure that I'm missing something here. 1.3 million backing. Okay. But so this is just a PDA, not a phone. It looks like a PDA. Let's see. Ultra thin clamshell mobile device with integrated tactile QWERTY keyboard. Fits in your pocket. It's been on display at CES. No, I actually missed this one. I did not see this at all. So it has 4G Wi-Fi. There's also Wi-Fi only model, Bluetooth connections, 5.99 inch touchscreen. Isn't dissimilar in size. 5.99 inch? That's how big this thing is? Maybe we need to see the photo gallery because that looks like something else. Oh, I guess that's just a... Oh, I see. So this is a full-on keyboard that you can type with both hands. Okay, I had not seen that. Thank you for mentioning. That is an interesting one. So it's basically This looks like a shrunken down netbook. Remember the netbooks, those tiny little laptops that you could carry around, but the screen was only this big? This looks like an even smaller version of that. And, obviously for typing, huge advantage there. I would assume it's a touchscreen too. It's just an Android with the keyboard, Android phone with the keyboard. Okay. That's kind of what it looks like. Is there anything, I know I should go through and read the whole article, but I haven't done any research on this. Is there anything special about this that, other than being scratch resistant, full HD? Well, it's full HD, so if you have Xfinity Mobile, you're probably not going to be happy watching videos with it. No mention of support for a stylus, but it has dual USB-C connectors. Okay, interesting. I'll have to do some more research on that. I had not seen this, but they've got $1.3 million in backing, 320 grams, 1.5 centimeters deep, and 50% heavier and thicker than the best phablet around. I'm cutting off part of my screen. Nope, that is how they worded it. Heavier and thicker than best phablet around. The Note 8. Oh, which is the Note 8, which is hardly surprising when you consider it has a physical keyboard. Okay, yeah, well, tell you what, if BlackBerry can keep selling, why not a PDA with a physical keyboard? I had not seen that before. So, let's move on here. I'm going to try to stay on track today. So there was a dummy iPhone 10 Plus and iPhone 9 with clear cases being shown off in the video. I know it's hard to get excited about these leaks because we basically just see something that may or may not happen, and then a week later we see something completely different, right? And this is from July 1st, so this is like day-old news already. But if you look at the picture, it doesn't look like anything has radically changed here. So we have a new tipster now. His name is, I'm probably going to say it wrong, so my apologies to him or her. Shay Mizrachi, I think, shown off some clear cases and a few dummy molds for what looked to be this year's 6.1 and 6.5, 6.1 LCD and 6.5 inch OLED iPhone. Blah blah blah. And here is his actual tweet: an exclusive look on the next iPhone 10 Plus and iPhone 9. The iPhone 10 Plus will come with a 6.5 inch screen, while the low-cost version will come with 6.1 inch and one camera only. Okay, so again, not anything that looks dramatically different than the current versions that we have available. The front sides have no display molding on front. Yada yada. Okay. And finally, he says stay tuned for another surprise. I'm not sure what that means. But the LCD model, they're expecting anywhere from $600 to $800. Almost said $1,800. $600 to $1,800? No, $600 to $800 for an LCD model. That sounds a bit steep, especially when we've heard that there were going to be some dramatic price reductions. Maybe that's including this in the price. The iPhone 10 sequel was recently said to start from $899, while the 10 Plus could go from $999. I guess that would be kind of a discount, right? Like maybe $100 difference. Yeah, I don't know. But I just remember that when the iPhone 7 was launched, I was actually doing a presentation, and because it was relevant to phone repair, I said, you know what, let's stop what we're doing and let's watch this live. So we watched the rollout of the iPhone 7. Was it the iPhone 7? Yeah, it was the iPhone 7. We watched the rollout of the iPhone 7 video. And I had a room full of probably about 3 or 4 people. Wasn't crowded, but there were a few people in the room. We're talking. We stopped and we watched the announcement of the new iPhone form factor and got to take a look at it, and everybody just kind of went, "That's it?" Like it's not like that much different from the iPhone 6. So lack of excitement, but I'm sure they'll find some cool features here to sell us into, hopefully. The only thing that stands out on it is that you can install Linux. And I should mention that when we talked about HTC, one of the things that I do remember very well about HTC when it comes to software was that when the HD2 was available, we had a lot of people who were excited about that, because my understanding was you could install just about any operating system that you wanted to on that phone. And of course, it seems like we don't see a lot of that anymore. But other than that, I wish I could think of something that would HTC could say that they did that's so different and so much better than everyone else that they could stay around. But I can't. I'm coming up with blanks at the moment. So yeah, if the iPhone 9 and iPhone 10 Plus look the same as the iPhone 8 and 10 that we have now, what's your incentive to upgrade? And we already know that the market's becoming quite saturated, and manufacturers are really trying to, I want to say, struggling with finding a way to get people to justify spending more money on a newer, better, bigger, faster phone. And I don't know, are we out of ideas? It seems like a lot of the features that we see built into phones now are not, with the consumer in mind, like, hey, this is going to be so great. You've been asking for this forever. Now you can get it. It's more like, hey, we thought something else up and we need to figure out a way to make you believe that you need this new feature. So I don't know. I'm just still thrilled, honestly, that I have wireless charging on my iPhone 8. It only took, it took a while, but it's here and it's amazing and it's overdue. All right, so 2018 phones, while we're talking about Apple, said to feature both embedded Apple SIM and traditional SIM card trays. So traditionally, if you got an iPhone that had two SIM card trays in it, it was not an iPhone. It was not made by Apple. It was generally some knockoff that was manufactured overseas, because in many markets, having dual SIMs is not only convenient, it's almost a necessity if you're passing from one network to another and you've got to have two different phone numbers, and you can just go into your phone and say, I want to be on this number now or this number now, rather than popping out a SIM and having to put another one in there, which, can ultimately lead to some damage on the inside of your phone. So we do have manufacturers that make, a lot of you are probably familiar with, if you're outside the US, they have dual SIMs specifically for that reason. Well, this is slightly different because Apple has been including what they call Apple SIM inside of their tablets for a few years now, and that is because if you've got an iPad mini or iPad Pro, and you want to be able to connect to a network, but you don't want to subscribe to a 2-year contract with some carrier somewhere, they came up with this idea of building a SIM that could be used with multiple carriers, whoever happens to be participating in their program. So it's not any carrier that you go to, but some of them will allow you to connect to their data network on a data plan with your tablet without having to have, obviously, a whole separate phone plan. Well, what they're talking about now is having this SIM, this Apple SIM, embedded inside of a tablet so that you can have not only the internal SIM that's made for the Apple services that go through selected carriers, but ultimately to have dual SIM capability for the same reason. And they're talking also about having a phone. Now, it wouldn't be available in the US because our network's a little different, but as far as in China, and I would assume it would be the same thing in Europe, they're going to have, supposedly, according to the article, allegedly, from forums.macrumors.com, we're looking at an iPhone that would have dual SIM technology built into it, so that I would think that you could do the same thing. You could travel from one market to another and pop in a prepaid SIM card in one slot, or maybe have two separate phone numbers depending on where you're based. And when you have multiple markets that are very close together, and if you're in one part of Europe and you want to travel to another part of Europe and you're not really going that far, but you're switching networks completely, it's kind of a big headache to have to change everything around, I would imagine. So back in 2014, this was introduced to allow people with iPads to have a convenient way to switch between carriers, and it doesn't specify which of the 2018 iPhones will have an embedded Apple SIM. And the difference being here, of course, is that if it's got an embedded SIM, then there wouldn't actually be a separate SIM card tray. The SIM would be built into the hardware on the phone. So the best example I can think of is we've had some phones that used to have micro SDs built inside of the phone. So instead of having a separate memory module, there was seriously a micro SD built inside of the phone. I'm trying to remember who it was that did that. It might have been HTC. I want to say it was HTC or LG, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So the report doesn't specify which phones, but Ming-Chi Kuo, who I thought wasn't doing predictions for Apple anymore, has previously said the budget iPhone 10, which is a 6.1 inch, and the 6.5 inch iPhone 10 Plus. But oddly, not the second gen 5.8 inch iPhone 10 will support dual SIM, dual standby. Let's see. He also said Apple may, I love how definite this is. They may release two 6.1 inch iPhone models, and in light of today's report, this could be referring to a nearly worldwide variant with an embedded Apple SIM and a Chinese variant with dual SIM card trays. which will be interesting because another thing that we tend to run into is people who come from outside the country or they buy phones from outside the country. And when we want to get them fixed, obviously the parts, if we've got a dual SIM logic board built into the phone, it's going to be different than most of the parts that we have available to us. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. I did want to show you here real quick, if I can find it, who supports dual SIM, dual standby network-wise when we talk about Apple's. That's not the one I was looking for. They actually had a list here. Where did we go? Did I lose it? We had a list here of domestic carriers who supported this technology, and why don't I see it? Why am I not seeing it? Introduced a SIM in 2014. Is that the link? That's not the link. I'm sure it's not. Okay, well, I'll have to Google that. But there are companies in the US that support Apple SIM. So do you have to unlock your phone at that point? I really don't know. I'm not sure this is going to be something that we see too much of here in the US. I think it's going to be more for people outside of this market. I see these becoming more popular. The more powerful they get, the more they will start to replace laptops and such. Oh yeah, as far as the portable PDA, maybe so. Maybe so. I think that the biggest problem, at least when it comes to tablet type devices, where people get Chromebooks and anything along those lines where it's got its own operating system, but it's not a real, I don't want to say real, but it's not a full-on PC operating system. It's not a Windows. It's not a Mac OS. It's kind of its own, minimized operating system. Is that, you can run apps obviously, but if you've got executables that you need to open, you can't. And that's my big problem, because I thought about going to something very lightweight and slim like a Chromebook or something along those lines, and it just it doesn't have the functionality that I need. Now, for most people, if you're browsing and sending emails and just doing basic internet interaction streaming, I would imagine it'd be great. So maybe that will be the next big thing. Okay, this is actually kind of silly, but I thought it was interesting, and I know I'm kind of moving a little fast today because I've got a whole bunch of stuff I got to get done. So if we don't go a whole hour, this will be why. Cracked iPhone screen. Check this out. This is an 8-legged case that says it will save your phone from being broken when it drops. So you remember a few years ago they had all kinds of crazy concepts or prototype designs of iPhones that had like a little compressed gas chamber built into the phone, so that if it senses that it's falling, which your accelerometer or your gyro would do, it would, the phone should be able to know when it's falling. It would then pop out this little thing that repositions it so that it kind of cushions the landing. And then when we were looking at, I want to say it was the Vivo Apex, it was one of the cameras that has the moving. Oh, no, it's a completely different phone. But there was a phone they were talking about when it drops, some of the internal hardware shifts so that the impact doesn't cause damage to the internals on the phone, which seems crazy because obviously that's going to happen very fast. Well, this was a student, I want to say in Germany, who came up with an idea for this thing, which if you want to watch the video, again, I'll link this down in the video description. He's got a case that is supposed to uncoil these legs. They literally shoot out of the side of the phone when it senses that it's being dropped. And that is going to help save your screen and, more importantly, your back panel on your iPhone 8 or iPhone 10, I would imagine. If you drop your $1,000 iPhone 10, which has glass on the front and back, you can free fall and quickly. What? Did I just read the wrong thing here? If you drop it, you can be pretty sure you'll crack one side, even from low heights. Wow. Some truth in advertising here. If you drop your iPhone 10 or your iPhone 8, I wish you luck. If it's the iPhone 8, I hope it lands face down because the back panel is no fun to replace. And if you drop your iPhone 10 and break the screen, I hope you have some sort of protection plan on that thing because it's not going to be cheap to fix. So Philipp Frenzel, an engineer at Allen University in Germany, is not a fan of the bulky case. So he designed an active dampening system, a slimmer case that has 8 hidden springy legs that pop open when the phone is falling to cushion its landing. And you have to see this. It looks unusual, obviously, and I'm not really understanding. It looks like they're using an iPhone. I don't know what this is here they're demonstrating this thing on. But if you can imagine these little legs popping out when your phone senses it's falling, my mind immediately goes to, what if these things pop out when they're not supposed to? Like the phone's not actually falling, but you have these 8 little pointy legs that suddenly pop out. That could be a problem, especially if you have your phone, I don't know, near someone who could get hurt by something like this. And secondly, if you have it in a confined space, like let's say you've got your phone sitting on a countertop near a ledge and somehow the legs end up popping out and it knocks the phone off the counter. Well, I guess you're protected then because you've got these 8 little springy legs, right? I don't know. But you've got to manually, from my understanding, you've got to manually retract them after they pop out. And if this isn't one of the more bizarre case designs I've ever seen in my life, I don't know what it is. It also includes an extra battery. So that's how this thing has the legs hidden inside. We've got an extra battery that can charge the phone wirelessly or by USB cable. The cover is 4.9 millimeters, or basically 0.2 inches thick, roughly. So it would make an iPhone 10 12.6 millimeters, or half an inch thick. The legs reach around the front to give it a 3 centimeter, or is that a 1.2 inch buffer? It's got to be, right? Frenzl and business partner Peter Mayer have developed AD cases for all iPhone models from the iPhone 10 to the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. So if anyone wants to buy one of these, please make a video. I want to demonstrate. I'm going to see if I can get a hold of one of these. Honestly, it looks kind of ridiculous, but I guess if it works, maybe. I don't know if the added size, and this seems to be a big deterrent when it comes to selling protective cases, is most customers that don't have something heavy duty like this. You see I've got an Otter style box on here. Most of the people who don't want that case really want just a minimal silicone covering at most. A lot of people like to go naked with their phone. So, something like this would certainly be protective, but I think convincing someone to make their phone that much bigger, and I can only imagine the cost associated with this case is going to be significant. So we'll see. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I wonder if this case would be considered an explosive device. Probably a good question, Harvey. If you're going through TSA, I imagine they might have some problems with something that pops out little retractable legs. So that could be an issue. Might have to check that one if anything. I don't know. I'm skeptical. I mean, good for this guy, thinking it up. But really, could you imagine your phone looking like this? You should check out this video. It's interesting. I mean, they don't really show a lot, but it's 49 seconds long. So, yeah. Good luck to you, man. I just don't, personally, I'm a bit skeptical, but who knows? Stranger things have happened, right? As seen in the video, closing legs simply requires pressing each pair together and then folding them back into the case like a pocket knife. Yeah, okay. Probably going to have some trouble with that one. All right, so here we have Alphar, and that's it. I got through it, folks. And the reason, like I said, I've got a whole bunch of stuff piled up that I've got to get finished today. So this is going to be a record short. I think this is going to be the shortest live stream I've done, at least this year, if not ever, for that reason. So there is a holiday coming up, lots of preparation for us to get done over here. And for those of you who are celebrating it, again, enjoy your 4th of July. I may or may not have a live stream this Thursday. I wish I could be more definite than that, but it's kind of up in the air at this point. So I'll certainly tweet and make an announcement. I'll use that new feature on YouTube. I've been meaning to test that out for a while to announce whether or not I know, 42 minutes, to announce whether or not we're going to do a live stream. Either way, I'm planning on having something to publish on Thursday, but that's it. That's all I got for today. That is all the excitement, other than the big merger between T-Mobile and Sprint, which I'm sure you're all aware of already. And if that thing does finalize, which it is my understanding that it will, I predict that the Sprint brand name may be going away. Although, think about this for a second. When T-Mobile acquired Metro, they did not change the brand name, which surprised me, because I really thought that the first thing that they would want to do is to eliminate a brand name that was, for the most part, associated with a low price point, low cost, and, I hate to say it, but in many cases, low quality and not the greatest customer service ever. But they chose to stay with it and said that they welcomed the bargain basement market with open arms. So maybe with Sprint, they will welcome a challenge network the same way. I don't know. We'll see. But I think that eventually we'll have T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, which is not necessarily great news for us, because now, if you've only got 3 companies to choose from instead of 4, then that's just one less option you have to you. And of course, if you only have one ISP that offers high-speed internet in your area, then you have no options. Well, you have option yes and option no, and that's about it. Yeah, so this is a short one. But if I don't see you this Thursday, I will definitely see you next Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if I get anything together in time and it's physically capable, because I'm going to be in a different location on Thursday, and that's one of the reasons I don't know if I'm going to be able to live stream. It's not a matter of wanting to, it's more a matter of having the equipment necessary to do so. And if I don't, enjoy your 4th, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next time.